The HBCU Sports Podcast coming to you in 3, 2.
I'd just like to say thank you for your perseverance, your will to win. You can't judge a man's will. You can't measure a man's will. When a man get the will that y'all guys have, the sky's the limit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The only thing can stop us is us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we gonna get better though.
Oh, sir.
Okay, but I tell you what, you all have hearts of talent.
Oh, yes, sir.
And the heart of a lion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One last thing. Tell them to bring me my money.
Yeah, tell him to bring me my money. That was head coach of North Carolina A&T, Sam Washington, after his victory over East Carolina on Saturday, celebrating with his players, telling him to bring him his money. This is the HBCU Sports Podcast. I'm Kenn Rashad. He's Jeff Duplessis.
That's me. Hey, what's going on out there?
He's on cue this time, my man. This is the HBCU Sports Podcast. Glad to be with you again for another week to talk about the week that was and to even preview the week that will be. Let's take a moment to address a couple of things here.
$300,000 check. I just want to
$300,000 check.
That's nice. That's a nice little pocket change.
Plus expenses, Jeff. The details are important. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure you follow us on the social networks. You can find us on Instagram at HBCU_sports. We're located on Twitter at HBCU Sports, and we're also located on Facebook. If you want to follow me personally, by all means, you can find me on all platforms at Kenn Rashad, KENNRASHAD. Jeff, where can he find you, man?
I'm only on Twitter. And I'm at JAYMO700, JAYMO, the number 700.
Keep in mind, we are also a donation-based podcast. You can also go to hbcusports.com, go to the podcast page, and you'll see the donation button where you can make a donation. We ask that you please take the time to do so. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to see us grow, we hope that you find the podcast informative. We hope that you find it to be entertaining and worth the few change or the few dollars that you might consider donating to us. With that said, Jeff, let me once again take a moment to think. Make sure that you go to Spreaker.com, go to our page and follow us there. That way, whenever we upload a new episode to the platform, you will be notified of that notification, and you'll be able to download the podcast using the Spreaker app or whatever application you use to listen to the file. So with that said, Jeff, we had an upset in college football on Saturday in North Carolina A&T's defeat over East Carolina, an FBS institution, as we heard the celebration previously with Sam Washington making sure that someone go to the office and pick up that money.
I especially like the little accent he put on. He said, make sure they send me my money.
He said,
he put a little accent on it, to kind of emphasize it a little bit more.
Hey, there you go.
Tell them to bring me my money.
There you go. Yeah, so, Ken. Week one's in the books, man, and the Aggies had a good victory, a big victory. They've had two big victories now in consecutive weeks, but this one against East Carolina, FBS program. Anytime you beat somebody on the road and they pay you for it, hey, you can't get any better than that.
Well, yeah, obviously the payment goes without questioning, but obviously now here's an interesting question for you, real quick. Now, granted, this is East Carolina. Not they've struggled over the last few years. Mm-hmm. A&T won that game 28-23. It was a $300,000 payout plus expenses to make that 2.5-hour trip from Greensboro to Greenville, North Carolina. This game was a challenge before the actual game was played, and that it was supposed to be played on Saturday. They literally played the game on a Sunday, just about 24 hours delay. You had
11 o'clock. Yeah, 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
that's Sunday. It was
right.
Played, yeah.
And of course, it was delayed due to weather. You had players who, I think, from what I understood, you had people who, thought they were going to be able to play the game, and then of course they couldn't, and it was on again, off again. The two schools got together and simply decided to go ahead and play the game the next day, which they eventually did. So I think that in and of itself indicates to what Coach Washington alluded to in their will to want to win that game, given the obstacles that they had to face before kickoff of the actual game even started.
Yeah, that tells the team has some heart and has some character. You prepare for, football players are they have a routine. All of them have routines, and to break their routine often can cause them all kind of consternation. But this team showed that they could deal with that, deal with some adversity. Had to stay in a hotel an extra night away from home. They could have easily came out the next day and was flat, but they came out and they played a good game. It was not their best game. East Carolina, who are a member of the, and I'm going to say this in quotations, air quotes, the Power 6 American Conference, as they like to call themselves. They say they're the Power 6 Conference.
They call themselves a Power 6 Conference?
Yeah, that's what the American. That's how they brand themselves. The Power 5.
Yeah.
They think they're the best of the group of five, and they put themselves up there. That's just their marketing thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the team played well. They struggled at times. Both teams struggled offensively. But I tell you what, and this is a player we have to recognize, Ken, going forward, because this kid, Mac McCain, the cornerback for A&T, he returned an interception 100 yards. Yeah, that is his fourth in less than 13 games as a college player. He's got 4 touchdowns returned, 4 interceptions returned for touchdowns. He's obviously got big players in his blood. It
will go into the record books as a 100-yard interception for a touchdown. But I watched that game. He was literally about 9 yards in the end zone when he caught that ball. Right, and I believe in the NFL, I think they give you credit for the end zone. They give you credit for the end zone, right?
Yeah, the NFL
If this was the NFL, that would have been a 109-yard interception return for a touchdown. I mean, that was that critical. And then, like you said, compliment to his ability and his skill set. And this obviously isn't anything new for him. For him to be able to have the determination to run the ball out 9 yards into the end zone and to see that space and have the confidence to be able to run that back says something about his skill set and possibly even say more about future years and possibly playing on Sundays.
We might want to call him Primetime Junior.
Hey,
his name, he's actually a third. He's Mac McCain the third. Maybe we'll call him Primetime the second.
Well, it wouldn't be out of the question. The one thing, though, you did mention, now, A&T, despite what you may say about them playing up against a FBS opponent, this game was, for the most part, sloppy. This wasn't what you would consider the prototypical A&T game, type of game. I believe with the penalties, I think they had something like for the game, 14 penalties for 113 yards. That's highly uncharacteristic of the type of A&T team that we're used to seeing, regardless whether it be Rod Broadway or Sam Washington. And even Coach Washington addressed that himself, that that was definitely a sore sticking point that his team has to address in their preparation for their game next week against Gardner-Webb.
Right, like I said, it was sloppy. It was a muck game type thing. The field may have still had some weather conditions because it was heavy rain the night before. But the bottom line is they got that victory, and they came out with the win. But now I have one question, Ken. Do the Aggies have a QB controversy going forward? Because Lamar Reynolds struggled.
Okay,
and Khalil Carter came off the bench, and he really gave him a boost. They're both senior quarterbacks, but Reynolds been a starter for most of the last 2 years. So.
I understand now. I didn't witness this. I didn't see it anywhere. Now, supposedly Raynard was hurt. He was pulled out. I think he hurt his hand. I don't know to what degree, but apparently, I mean, he struggled, like you said. And for Carter to come in and to play the way he did, he actually added a whole new dynamic to the offense. He is obviously a little bit more versatile. He can kind of hurt you with his feet, and and actually throws a pretty good ball too, as he showed in that game against East Carolina. But here is one of the things though that I and this is just in kind of monitoring what people have been saying about this game after the fact. It's kind of gotten to the point to where, if you didn't know any better, you kind of get spoiled by seeing A&T do what it does against FBS teams. Again, they beat East Carolina obviously this year. Had a solid win against Jacksonville State last week, which is obviously an FCS team. But they defeated Charlotte last year. The year before that, they defeated Kent State. Now, people do forget this is their third FBS win in the last 4 attempts, because after the win against Kent State in 2016, that following week they played against Tulsa and they lost that game. And I think it was by at least 3 or 4 touchdowns. It was rather lopsided, and that was still at a time when they had Tariq Cohen. But my question to you with respect to this particular game is, given the struggles that East Carolina has exhibited, is this the type of game, because it got to the point to where people were saying A&T should have won this game. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair when you consider that there's still an FCS team who is outnumbered in terms of scholarships against an FBS team, despite the struggles of the
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's a game that you could say they should have won. There's a higher level of competition. You can say they got more scholarships. I don't know for sure, but I can assume that East Carolina probably has better facilities.
Without question.
Although I don't know for sure of that, but I would assume they would. They're a larger university.
I think that stadium seats about 50,000, at least 55,000 people.
Plus it's on the road. It's on the road. So there was, for them to win that, you cannot take anything away from the Aggies. They played their butts off. It was sloppy. It was not the best performance for either team, but at the end of the day, they got that W, and they're 2-0 on the season, and they can put that feather in their hat. They got another FBS victory once again.
Yeah. So they will obviously have to put that win behind them now, as they're obviously we're midweek, and they've got a Gardner-Webb team that they had no problem against last year. They won pretty handily. That game is going to be at Aggie Stadium at 6:00. But let's transition a little bit. We'll stay in the MEAC.
And I'll mention one thing, that those 2 victories over the last 2 weeks have buoyed the Aggies from what they started the season 14th in the FCS.
Yeah.
They're a top 10 program
now. They're ranked, I believe, according...
They've jumped up quite a bit over the last 2 weeks.
No, I think they received
some respect.
A number 6 ranking, if I'm not mistaken, in the last poll that came out, and deservedly so. Now, of course, if you ask me, I think they should have started off the season in the top 10, but that's a debate for another day.
Right.
Exactly. We won't go into that. But Howard, despite losing to an Ohio team, again, they played up last week against an FBS school, and Jeff, they almost did it again.
Yeah, they came close. They 38-31 to scheme up the MEAC, Ohio
University.
By the way, a team coming off a 9-win season last year.
Favorite to win they're favorite to win a MEAC. If I'm not mistaken.
So you go on the road and you play a team like that to within touchdown. Some people say there are no moral victories, but they should have hung their head on that one. They had a good performance in that quote unquote go offense. And man, do we have another superstar in the making in quarterback Kalen Newton? I mean, is he potentially the next Steve McNair? Because he's putting up numbers, man. And I hate to use that analogy, that comparison, because McNair, we know what McNair was.
Yeah.
But numbers he's putting up, over 500 yards total offense, I think he scored three. He hit total 3 touchdowns, 3 for 2 and ran for 1. I mean,
look,
he's only a sophomore, so
yeah. 439 yards.
Passing and 93 yards rushing.
Yeah. McNair, I think look, I'm not discrediting. I mean, look, I get it. Yeah, you say guy's just a sophomore, and there's still a lot of football to play. But I mean, look, if there's anyone who could, he's got the lineage to do it. I mean, so wow, I never really thought about that, but this truly is one of those instances where a team like Howard, and if you talk to Jay Walker, he'll tell you Howard is the academic institution. It's Mecca. It's known for its academics. We're not a football powerhouse, but it truly is a testament to see how a program can literally evolve overnight from the hiring of a coach. And Mike London is off.
You get a good quarterback. Your chances
absolutely
can happen instantly.
Absolutely. But I mean, just it's nothing new. We see coaches go from program to program. Obviously, I keep going back to Rod Broadway. You see what he did at North Carolina Central at the Division II level. You see what he did when he got to Grambling, and then you see what he did with A&T. And all of those were programs that were struggling when he took over. He literally turned them around. And so for Mike London, who, again, is no slouch in his own regard, and then actually coached at Virginia for a while, and actually before that, I believe, with Richmond. I mean, one has to wonder, and this may be a little bit premature, but Mike London is starting his second season as the head coach. Mm-hmm. How much longer? You already know where I'm going with this.
Well,
how much longer will it take before other schools take notice and say, that's our guy? Can he? I don't know. Typically, you would think, maybe 3 years?
Well, he's still a fairly young coach.
Well, I get that. But my point is it, I mean, will he be at Howard, say, this time next year?
Unfortunately, that's par for the course with all HBCU programs. They don't have the resources.
Not necessarily. No.
Well,
not necessarily. That's not par for the course for HBCU programs. Coaches don't necessarily get hired once they get to HBCUs. Now, that's
what I'm saying. No. I'm saying that if they are good enough and they want to leave, they will have options to go. Some are just bypassed and looked over. They're not considered worthy candidates. I mean, but London has had success. He's coached at other programs, like the Coach Haywood.
Yeah.
Who's another
Texas
one.
Southern. Yeah.
He's a little older, but he had his bite at the apple coaching in, I think, Kent State, was it?
Miami. That one was MEAC. Miami, Ohio, if I'm not mistaken.
Miami, yes. So if the opportunity is there and they want to leave, they're not going to get in a bidding contest. Howard's not going to pay him $800,000 to $1 million a year. That another FBS program could give him. Even a Group of 5 program can give him. They're not going to pay him that. They can pay him $300,000-$400,000 maybe. That's about it. I
get that, but I guess I look at. The most recent coach that was hired from an HBCU, we already know, was Jay Hobson when he took the job at Southern Miss. Yeah. Now
we know why that happened.
And I don't want to necessarily rehash that. But then when you look at what coaches before him did, you look at what Rod Broadway did. Rod Broadway was considered for the head coaching job at Duke. If I'm not mistaken, he was considered, and I think even interviewed for the head coaching job at one point at East Carolina. His name has come up a couple of times, but for whatever reason, no one wanted to pull the trigger on that. And so now you got someone like Mike London, who, and I'm guessing to his benefit, because he has coached as a head coach outside of HBCU circles, you have to wonder if that is going to help him, or the fact that he's at Howard now, might it possibly hurt him in the event that an opportunity comes along? Because you can't convince me that at this rate that he isn't already on the name of someone's short list. Especially as we progress through the rest of this year.
I don't want to sound negative. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I think sometimes when you coach at these HBCU programs, you get to wear the scarlet letter. And London's saving grace is that he has coached outside of the HBCU and had some success. That might be his saving grace. But I'll give you an example. Coach Fobbs at Grambling. There's no reason why he should not have been looked at last year.
He was.
Some programs.
Well, ULM, Louisiana Monroe, had expressed interest in talking to him.
Yes, I know they're going to give the courtesy.
Right, he did meet with them. I don't know how serious he was about actually taking that job, but I think as a courtesy, and I think ties within he's from Monroe. And right. Ties to the community, I think just as a courtesy, he did that. But that's a fair point. You have to look at someone like Coach Fobbs and ask yourself, will he be a victim, per se, of because him coaching at an HBCU, a very significant HBCU, if you will, and given what he's done up to this point, will that be held against him?
Well, I don't, like I said, I think sometimes they're not taken as seriously as they should be by the historically other institutions, as we like to call them. Mm-hmm. We'll see. We'll see how it unfolds for Coach London, but I will say the track record does not look very good. And like I keep saying, London might be a different case because of his other success.
Right, what he's done previously.
I'm wondering about Eric Dooley. If he runs the table at a Prairie View and wins 10 games this year, 10 games next year, 10 games the year after that,
and
will somebody actually consider giving him an opportunity? We know he's a bright young coach. Right. He's been on the radar of a lot of people for a long time. Right. And he's having success at Prairie View. Let's see. And
we'll get to him later. But getting back to Howard and their win against Ohio State, overall Ohio, it doesn't get any easier for them next week as they go back to the state of Ohio to play against Kent State and another FBS team.
Right. They get as I say, they get another bite at the MEAC apple. That's going to be the second bite in 2 weeks. But I'd say go back to the Ohio game, 4 turnovers. And they lose by 7 points. Right. You don't have 4. If you have 2 turnovers, you probably win. Right. But 4 turnovers, you can't afford to do that on the road when you're the quote unquote lesser program. You can't do it. Right. And as great as that offense looks and as exciting as they appear to be, they got to cut those turnovers down and cut the penalties down.
Now,
but
go ahead.
Go on. I'm sorry. Go on. You go on.
No, I was just going to say their contest against Kent State might. Again, we addressed the fact that Ohio was a preseason favorite to win the MEAC, and they faced against a Kent State team that previously competed against Illinois last week. They lost 31-24 in that game, but Kent State actually gave Illinois a run for its money. As a matter of fact, that game was tied up until like the third quarter. And, I don't know all the details, but I mean, it was kind of a back and forth type situation. Kent State was ahead at 1.7-3, then it was 10-3, then they were ahead 17-3, and then, Illinois came, storming back, and, it was like 24-17 at one point before they held them and eventually took that game. So it's going to be an uphill battle for them. But if there was ever a team who would possibly be up for the task, it would be a team like Howard when you consider what they've done up to this point. Again, not much different from A&T. They upset UNLV last year. They did fairly well all throughout the season in their non-conference games. I think they struggled. Was it Richmond that they played? I think they may have lost to last year. But they face against a Kent State team that, again, I think for all intents and purposes, when you consider what they've done up to this point, I think they'll be looking forward to the challenge and they'll be extremely motivated to go in and pull off another upset.
Yeah, no, I agree. They'll have their work cut off for them. Kent State, like you said, they came off of a good performance against a bottom-feeding Illini team. I mean, I'm not going to joke about it. Illinois is probably the worst team they are the worst team
in the Big Ten.
In the Big Ten,
right? Without question.
I love Lovin Smith, but
yeah.
I
know.
God bless him. I hope he does well.
Tell me about it. I know it. So, but that's going to be the two teams that obviously everyone would keep their eyes on. I don't necessarily think that A&T you would think they shouldn't have a problem with Gardner-Webb, but again, with Howard, I think the eyes will be on them to see what they could possibly do against another FBS opponent. And let's not forget, FAMU has a game this weekend against Troy. And after a game that they won earlier first week against Fort Valley State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're on the road against Troy. And Troy traditionally is, one of the better Sun Belt teams, a good, solid FBS program. They went into Baton Rouge last year and knocked off LSU in Tiger Stadium. So they're right there in Alabama. So they're in the further recruiting ground. So they should have talent, but then A&M should have talent also. So we'll see how they perform. They did what they had to do last week against Fort Valley State. Mm-hmm. The Rattlers did.
Wonder where they were supposed to win.
Now they're kind of stepping up in class a little bit, and we'll see. We'll see how Coach Simmons and his programs is gonna progress. He was brought in there to turn around this quote unquote sleeping giant, and we all know the A&M. And I consider A&M and I consider Jackson State, I consider those two programs like sleeping giants in HBCUs. They're sitting on a wealth of talent all around them, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be consistently dominant teams year in and year out. Unfortunately, neither one of them has done that in recent times, but Coach Simmons hopefully can turn it around. He's from the region. He's from Tallahassee, so he's back home. So we'll see. But I don't expect them to beat Troy, but I want them to be competitive. I want them to be competitive, play a good game, play a smart game, play a disciplined game, and then move on from that point.
Yeah. Coach Willie Simmons indicated that despite the fact that they played, against a Division II team in Fort Valley, that he noticed that there was a level of enthusiasm in Tallahassee that apparently hadn't been there for quite some time. I think they had close to 20,000 people there in Bragg Stadium. There was a lot of energy there, and one could only look at that as a very positive first step for Willie Simmons, who I think, there might still be some bumpy moments, but I think that's a good, strong statement in terms of getting a win under their belts against the home crowd, and of course preparing themselves for Troy, next week against a Division I team. We're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, Jeff, we're going to talk about the MEAC SWAC Challenge, Prairie View and North Carolina Central. We'll be right back. And we're back. This is the HBCU Sports Podcast. I'm Kenn Rashad. He's Jeff Duplessis. And Jeff.
Yeah, what's up?
We had the annual MEAC SWAC Challenge played this year at Georgia State Stadium in Atlanta.
What you tell me was the former...
You know what? I don't know. Okay, we talked about that. I need to clarify that because I lied to you.
It's not the first time.
For whatever reason, I don't know why I was thinking that was the old Atlanta Fulton County baseball stadium where the Falcons and the Braves played. But that is, I think, is it Phillips Field? I think that's what it. Forgive me, you folks who are listening from Atlanta, man. I'm only there maybe once every year during December. But anyway, it's the old baseball stadium where Atlanta played.
Okay, all right. It's a big stadium.
It's a big stadium, yeah. But I guess I don't know what the arrangement was, but Georgia State owns it now, and they've made all of these changes to it. But it's a pretty nice venue. And
Atlanta builds new stadiums every 3-4 years.
Tell me about it. Goodness.
They just got it. Dallas the same way. Dallas is the same way. Y'all crazy. Both of y'all. Dallas and Atlanta.
I don't know if it's that bad, but
the Superdome, baby. 50 years and going.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. You're landlocked. Now we're just gonna leave it at that. All right. So anyway, the Panthers and the Eagles. Prairie View played North Carolina Central in the annual MEAC SWAC Challenge, and man, Prairie View for the second straight week, despite entering this game 0-1 with that disappointing loss to Rice, came in and guns blazing and managed to rack up a convincing 40-24 win over North Carolina Central. And I guess the second straight win that a MEAC SWAC team was able to beat a MEAC team in the MEAC SWAC Challenge.
Yeah, the Panthers came in. They were in control almost from the beginning, outside of a little hiccup in the second half where Central made a bit of a comeback. I wouldn't even call it that. But, they pretty much controlled the game. Coach Dooley had those kids ready. They were well disciplined. They played smart football. They rode the hot arm of Jalen Morton again. This kid, they found their quarterback for sure. Now we know that after 2 very good games back to back. He didn't turn the ball over. He had 2 touchdowns. But the big star of the game, Ken, I'm gonna let you talk about that young man.
Dwanye Tucker.
Exactly.
Had a record.
The Mighty Mouse.
Man, 200 and
the diminutive one.
Now depending on who you talk to. Now I heard he ran for 260 some yards, but I think in the stat books they got him officially at net 224 yards rushing on the day. Okay. But at 5'6", 90 pounds?
No.
What?
165.
What?
165.
5'6", 165.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, the brother can ball, and if you are if he's in open space, it's over. I had a chance to see bits and pieces of him last year, and I had a conversation with when Coach Simmons was there at the time, and he talked to me about how dynamic Tucker is, and he showed that Saturday. But here's the question I want to ask you, Jeff, because you talked about Jalen Morton, and someone asked me this question the day after the game, and I thought it was actually a pretty intriguing question. Jalen Morton completed 21 of 36 passes, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dwanye Tucker, 224 net yards. And the question was asked, which player had the biggest impact? Jalen Morton or Dwanye Tucker?
I think you could split the difference on that one. I don't.
Oh, that's
that's the easy way out. I'm sure. Jalen Morton was responsible for 2 touchdowns. Tucker was responsible for 1. So if you want to take it like that, he got 12 points. The other one got 6. So
how simplistic is that? No, that.
I mean, it's hard to say who was most responsible. They both were responsible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the key was who the biggest impact. But look, Jalen Morton, dude, he balled.
I'll say this here about Jalen Morton. He was unknown coming into the season. They lost
their
quarterback last year.
Right.
Transfer.
Yeah. So
they didn't know what they were going to get. They had a young quarterback last year. His name escapes me now. Who put up some big numbers. He was a freshman. He transferred out to a JC and left them kind of in the lurch. Morton, they found Morton.
Oh, I know you're talking about, right? Yeah, his name escapes me too. Yeah, But the key, it goes back to, again, you talk about, and you mentioned his name earlier, Eric Dooley. and the anticipation of what
he may be the most responsible. There you go.
Well, there may be some to that. Again, you can't dismiss the way his team performed against Rice. You certainly can't dismiss the way his team performed Saturday against Central. Now, granted, we're looking at a talent level here, but Prairie View showed up. And again, we talked about this earlier about coaches and the impact that they can have. Now, granted, Prairie View, it's not like Prairie View was lost for dead. I mean, Coach Simmons left them in pretty good shape.
Right. I agree. Now,
I guess the key here for Dooley is what can he do with what Coach Simmons left, and can he build off of that? And I don't know exactly if that means, I'm guessing they've got the pieces necessary to get to the SWAC championship game. Can you? Well, they've got the pieces. Can they get past Grambling, and can they get past Southern, and get to that game? And to be honest with you, based upon what I've seen these past 2 weeks, there's absolutely nothing that tells me that they can't get past those two teams.
Well, if anybody knows Grambling, it'll be Coach Dooley.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that gives him a little inside edge.
Well, yeah, but he knows Southern too.
Exactly. You're right. So, yeah. I mean, everybody. We've been talking about Coach Dooley for a while. We all knew he was a kind of a rising star. He's well received, well regarded. Now he's getting his chance, and it would not surprise me if they win the SWAC Western Conference. It would not surprise me if they go to the Celebration Bowl, because I think his team offensively has what it takes. Defensively, they're gonna struggle still, but they have the offense and to put up big numbers, and time will tell. But I tell you, two numbers that stood out in that game against the North Carolina Central was 646 total yards and 30 first downs. You rarely see a team get 30 first downs in a game. That is dominant. That is moving the ball, and you are just converting third down after third down after third down.
Yeah,
and obviously that offense was clicking.
Well, you look at again that natural progression, because I don't know what people expected against Rice, given what we know about Rice, but they played well against Rice. Should have won the game against Rice. They played extremely well against North Carolina Central. But Jeff, I think, and I don't think I'm overstating this, Prairie View plays Sam Houston State next week in Huntsville. They're going to make that, I guess it's not even quite 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes or whatever. And
right.
You're looking at Prairie View versus I believe Sam Houston State is currently ranked fourth in the nation.
Fourth in the nation. Preseason number 4. They have not played a game yet.
Exactly right.
Number 4.
A very key factor. And that look, and I understand Prairie View isn't ranked yet. I think it's safe to say that they're turning heads. But this game here is the game. I don't care if you're a SWAC fan. I don't care if you're a MEAC fan. I don't care if you're an HBCU fan, or even if you're an FCS fan. This might be the game of the weekend to watch.
Yeah, I think it's the number one game of the HBCU.
Really?
Weekend. I don't
of all HBCU games, you think this is it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm going to have an eye on Howard at Kent State, so I think that's going to be a big game.
Right.
But we talking about two FCS versus FCS programs. We're gonna see how good Prairie View is. We know they played Rice to the T. We know they just beat a good North Carolina Central team. Well, now they're going to have a chance to play a team that's fourth in the nation, a team in Sam Houston State that has gone to the NCAA division semifinals.
Yeah, they made some runs. Yeah, they made some runs. Made it to the finals and lost to North Dakota State, I believe, one year.
Right.
Look, they've had some success. They've been fielding a quality product. But when you look at the intangibles, again, Prairie View has played 2 games so far this year. Sam Houston. This is going to be their season opener, home opener in Huntsville.
Agree. And that's a big
Exactly. And so with respect to the fact that they are going on the road, and I flash back briefly to the game that they played last year, and I had a chance to see that game just for a little bit. And Prairie View, you know, we waited and we watched and we were thinking, you know, come on, but it just seemed like they were missing some pieces per se. They just weren't quite there yet. They didn't play particularly bad. They had their moments. They had opportunities. This might, you know, I don't want to oversell this, but man, this is going to be a game that
I'm buying. You can sell it. I'm buying.
Look, this, like you said, this could very well be the HBCU game of the week, and I think it's safe to say that those of us who've been following HBCUs and of course the negative stigma that's associated with with HBCUs and their track record against out of conference opponents, whether it be FCS or FBS, this is one of those games where when you look at what A&T has done, when you look at what Howard has done, we're still, all due respect, you know, to what Grambling has done. And you know, they played Northwestern State last year. They won. They play them again this weekend. You know, hopefully you would think they will win that game. But this is the game, Prairie View versus Sam Houston State, that I think could very well, and again, I'm real careful. You know, I'm not one who's trying to gain acceptance, but I think
it's only one game.
But, right, I get it. But what I'm saying is that this could very well
could bolster. But negativity that we hear about HBCU,
especially with the SWAC. I don't think that negativity is associated with the MEAC anymore.
I agree. Yeah, to a certain, you're correct. Yeah,
but I think that this game could do wonders for the credibility overall for the SWAC, assuming what the other teams can do as well. So Prairie View versus Sam Houston State in Huntsville at 6 p.m. That game will be I don't know if you're televised or streamed live, if you will, on, is it ESPN3, ESPN Plus?
ESPN Plus. Yeah.
ESPN Plus.
Yeah. The Panthers versus the Cons.
Oh, wow, really?
Wow. That's my homage to
The Longest Yard.
Yard, yes.
That is so wrong.
But they're in Huntsville, Mississippi, Texas. So.
That is so wrong.
Yeah.
So, but there are some other interesting games in the SWAC coming up this weekend. I guess there's an interesting game that is, again, an FBS team playing against an FCS team, Southern playing against Louisiana Tech. That's the Jags are going to Ruston. And we'll probably, I don't know, I'm guessing we'll flood the city of Ruston with blue and gold. But you know what? I had a chance.
US 190 to I-49 into Ruston. There you go.
No.
How you go? It's the best way to go.
You don't take 149. You take 167.
No, they're gonna go 190. 190 runs right by the campus.
40.
How about 190? Take that to Opelousas, get on 49 North, and you go right into.
You take 49 to 167. Come on, man. You're from the boot.
I'm from Louisiana card. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, we won't get in there. Anyway, look. Needless to say, you know, we know why Tech brought them in. Southern, look, for what it's worth, they played TCU last Saturday. You know, that TCU, and it was a rather lopsided contest. Southern had their moments to the point to where, depending on how they do against Louisiana Tech, and now granted, you know, they're going to be an underdog, but they're, you know, it'll be interesting to see what the turnout of that game will be, because I think. Given, I'm guessing Dawson Odoms, you know, saw what they would look like against TCU. I guess this will be another measuring stick for him to kind of get some idea of what he could possibly expect with his team once he gets into conference play. So that'll be one of those games to look out for.
Any idea how much Tech is paying Southern?
If
you had to take a guess.
actually, that information is published. You got me. It's more than what Grambling is getting to play Tech, if I'm not mistaken. Grambling plays Tech next year, and I think
you got a little further to travel. I guess that's maybe why.
Yeah, but
I remember you said that. Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
I think even though this game was scheduled some years ago, I think Grambling's contract with Tech is still, I guess, about $10,000 less. I don't know what the exact number is, but hey, that's the business. But good luck to Southern. Hope you guys do well up there in Ruston. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because again, it doesn't necessarily have a huge, unless Southern wins, it's not something that will have a huge impact on where the teams stand towards the end of the year. But there is another game too, Alabama A&M and North Alabama. Now I know you said I guess you didn't see what the big deal was with that game. For whatever reason, I've got a personal intrigue about that game. Or did I not understand you correctly?
No, you're right. I didn't. I mean, they're neighbor schools. They're an hour apart from each other.
77 miles.
It's a good regional rivalry.
Right. But so here's the thing. Connell Maynard, played his season opener last Saturday. They beat I believe Miles, 37-0 against Miles. A shutout. First time I think they've had a shutout in something like 6 years. Mm-hmm. A positive first step for Connell Maynard, and so far I'm thinking Bulldog fans are fairly happy with what they've seen up to this point. What's intriguing about the UNA game is that North Alabama is new to the FCS scene. They've been competing at the Division II level, and they've been dominating. They've been doing well.
Right.
And I think they played their first FCS contest. I forgot who they played, but I think they won that game. What's unique about this, and I did a little research. And I guess I think they've signed a 2-year agreement. They play again this year. They play this year. They play in 2019. My understanding is that I guess before A&M made the move to the SWAC when they were still Division II, UNA and A&M played quite a bit, and I did not know that the series record UNA holds a series lead over A&M, 18-3-1, 18 games. So A&M, look, you guys are going to have to write this one now. You guys have been at the FCS level longer than they have. You guys, you guys are going to have to, this is one of those games that I think is critical for the SWAC in terms of non-conference play. Again, they're not playing an FBS school. They're playing a so-called FCS school that's just, that's new here, but they're still here. And that's one of those games that they've got to win, as far as I'm concerned. So, That's what I think about that.
You don't want to lose to especially a school that's right down the road from you.
Yeah,
and they're new to your division. So
yeah, and they're trying to make that game a rivalry too. So when we come back, we will take a look at previews.
We're gonna look at some of the SWAC and MEAC alumni who made NFL rosters.
That's right. That's right.
The NFL season starts tomorrow. We got quite a few alumni of the MEAC and SWAC who will be on some NFL rosters this season.
This is the HBCU podcast. Nope, this is the HBCU Sports Podcast. Different show. This is the HBCU Sports Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the HBCU Sports Podcast. Kenn, Rashad, and Jeff Duplessis back
What's
with you
going
again.
on, folks?
So Jeff, the NFL finally, I guess final cut day, and of course they released their final rosters.
Yeah,
number of HBCU players who made the list, huh? Who made the final cut?
Saturday was the 53-man cut down for NFL, and then of course they start signing players to their practice squads, and so quite a few alumni of SWAC and MEAC teams made it to NFL rosters, either active roster or practice squad. And I'll just throw out a few names here. Joel Davis from Bethune-Cookman made a wide receiver. He made the Giants practice squad. Cadarrell Hodge from Prairie View, also a wide receiver, made the Rams, the LA Rams, LA Rams? Or St. Louis Rams. They're going to mix up.
Whatever. Go ahead.
St. Louis? LA.
LA Rams.
The LA Rams practice squad. See, I got to mess with you a little bit. And then a couple of Grambling made practice squads also. And Trent Scott, offensive tackle from Grambling. Yeah, he made the Chargers squad. Montrell Meander from Grambling made the Browns practice squad, the big safety.
Had a pretty interesting journey, Montrell Meander, who, he transferred from Texas. And I believe he came in as a wide receiver. So good to see him, basically prove himself to be a football player and not just a one position type player. So good.
He was a highly recorded player coming out of high school. He's a 4-star player. So he has some talent, no doubt about that.
Right.
Another one in the SWAC should be familiar with, the big running back from Alcorn, DeLance Turner. He made the Ravens practice squad.
I have to wonder if DeLance Turner, if it was that final run, he had something like a 65, 70-yard run for a touchdown in one of the preseason games. I have to wonder if that was the game the performance that gave him the opportunity to at least make the practice squad.
Yeah, well, I guess every little bit helps. He didn't hurt himself, so I'm sure they see something in him that that they like, and they're going to try to develop him. He may make the team sometime this year. Or he may just be in camp again next year. Right. A couple of draft picks who you expect them to make especially this high draft picks. Right. Darius Leonard, the second round pick out of South Carolina State. He made the Colts roster, of course, and second round pick. He's expected to play. And then Brandon Parker, the big tackle out of A&T, North Carolina A&T, third round pick. He made the Raiders roster. And from what I was reading about him, they're very high on him. They like his athleticism and his ability to pass block. Right. And the last one on our list is former Southern cornerback Danny Johnson. Two-time SWAC player and 16 career interceptions, big time cornerback, and he made the Washington Redskins final roster. Not final roster, practice squad.
Right. With respect to those who made the practice squads, and remember, you and I had this conversation not very long ago, and I was kind of surprised by this. But man, making a practice squad ain't necessarily a bad way to make a living as a professional football player. They make a little coin.
What they get, a hot meal, a ham sandwich, and $3 an hour?
Man, what?
No, no.
What? I mean, wasn't it something like in the ballpark of $30,000 a week?
Look, they're making more than I'm making.
Okay. It was something outrageous, and I'm thinking for practice squad,
it's good money.
Yeah, you
get the best meals and workout equipment and training, and so
Hey, congratulations!
It's not a bad deal.
Congratulations to all of those players who either made the final 53-man roster, made the actual team, or made the actual practice squad. And for those of you who were HBCU athletes and performers who still aspire to make it to the NFL, man, we are still rooting for you. And I think on a quick note, too, Devontae Kincaid signed a free agent contract with the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the CFL. So good luck.
And Ken, let me say this real quick. I did this research on my own. So if somebody knows of somebody I missed,
yes, by all means.
JMO700 at twitter.com, JMO700. Let me know, because I'm imperfect. This is what I could find, and I may have missed a few out there.
Well, that's going to do it. This has been the HBCU Sports Podcast. I'm Kenn Rashad. He's Jeff Duplessis. We will be back again next week to talk about everything we previewed this week, and we'll continue to keep doing it. Make sure you continue to follow us on the social media outlets. Make sure you continue to follow us on the Spreaker platform. Jeff, it's been a pleasure, as it always is, my man. We'll see you next week.
All right, see you on the other side. Take care, my man.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Tell them to bring me my money.